Well, happy Wednesday, happy April 1st, April Fool's Day. That day we set aside to have fun at times at others' expense. Sometimes others have fun at our expense. I've been on the receiving and the giving end of those kind of tricks through the years. Everything from wrapping toilet bowls in saran wrap to shoving tissue paper in the tips of people's shoes. All kinds of silly things, putting tape on somebody's wireless mouse at the office and watching them get frustrated because they couldn't get their cursor to move, making up stories, fake news, if you will. A little while ago, earlier this morning, I was out on our dock and our mechanic was walking across the parking lot and he hollered, he said, "Hey man, what are you standing in?" I looked down at my shoes and he just hollered, "April Fools." Back when Bob Kessling was the sports director at WBIR here in Knoxville, every April 1st, he always had a really good April Fool's story on the sports segment. I remember in 1989, he and John Ward collaborated on a great one. You can find it out on YouTube. It's a classic. But the story went that John Ward was stepping down as the voice of the Vols because he had decided to take a job as a mechanic down at Bob Jones Automotive off Watt Road in West Knox County. Bob went and was doing the interview, and John rolls out from underneath a car and has his work shirt on with John on it. He interviewed the owner, and he said, Bob, John has really caught on to this. He might be a natural. Interviewed somebody else and said, John's talked about doing this for years. I think he really wants to one day own his own truck stop. And John explained to Bob during the interview, Bob Jones is expanding their hours of operation to include Saturday, so I just won't be able to do football games anymore for the University of Tennessee. It was again one of Bob's great ones. Today, USA Today came out with an article talking about where we are and whether or not April Fool's Day is really appropriate to celebrate. That says that tradition where people and brands become pranksters for the day. This year, with the coronavirus pandemic wreaking global havoc, some companies are reconsidering their gags. Google, for instance, said it would forego its annual ritual of sharing jokes across company platforms. That came out from there. And then Alex Bose, who's the author of The Museum of Hoaxes, A History of Outrageous Pranks and Deceptions, said, it definitely does seem a little tone deaf if a business were to engage in April Fool's pranks, given where we are today. We are living in a serious time. There's no question about it. The news we are hearing every day seems to get worse and worse. And I understand why people are concerned. They should be concerned and take what we're facing seriously. The downside to that is people can become sullen and a little bit more serious than normal. I also believe we need to keep a healthy balance in our lives. We need to laugh. Laughter is good for the soul. I will never forget Charlie McDaniel's Celebration of Life service a little over 2 years ago on March 24th, 2018. We had all gathered outside of the chapel there at the funeral home, the family, getting ready to go in to have Charlie's service. And Sandy decided before the service began it might be a good idea if she went to the restroom. Well, Charlie's brother decided, a pretty good idea, and so he excused himself, went to the restroom. All of a sudden, we heard this loud scream. And here comes Sidney, Charlie's brother, walking out of the women's restroom back over to the men's room, and he had just gone the wrong way. We gathered back together, and Sidney's wife, as we're out there just chuckling a little bit, just says, and he's the one that has a PhD. And we all belly laughed, and I'm sure people sitting in the chapel there waiting for the funeral to begin, were really wondering what was going on with first the scream and then the laughter. See, right there in the midst of a time when people were mourning and grieving, we found a moment that was filled with laughter, and it lifted our spirits. And quite honestly, I could just see Charlie looking down on us and laughing, wiping away tears of joy as he looked down on the scene that had unfolded. In Proverbs 18:1 through 2, in the New King James translation, we hear, "A man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. He rages against all wise judgment. A fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart." I like the way it's translated in the New Century Version of the Bible. Those same verses read, "Unfriendly people are selfish and hate all good sense. Fools do not know or do not want to understand anything." Fools do not want to understand anything. They only want to tell others what they think. We're being asked to isolate ourselves as much as possible, not out of our own desires, not because we are selfish or we hate good sense, because it makes good sense and is one of the healthiest and least selfish things we can do right now to slow the spread and flatten the curve of the COVID-19 virus. So don't be foolish right now. Understand the current circumstances, and let's think about what we do when we go out. And more importantly, let's think before we speak and offer our opinions about how this crisis is being addressed. At the same time, don't be afraid to laugh like a fool. Find joy and happiness and celebrate it. Share laughter with others. There are times when truly laughter is the best medicine. Hope you all have a great rest of the day, and we will see you tomorrow. God bless.